All right, so I'm recording this and it's cold as crap in my office because it's December 18th and the office building that I'm in just decided to not turn the heat on today. So forgive me for being in my hoodie, but I'm very excited about this video because so many guys come to me and they ask questions along the lines of like, hey, do you have any tips around dieting? Do you have any tips around working out? Do you have any tips around, just trying to nail this as a dad? Like I'm super busy. I got kids, I got work, I got career, I got to travel for work. Like my schedule's crazy. I just don't have a lot of time. And the most common thing that I hear is like, I've tried keto, I've tried carnivore, I've tried vegan, I've tried Whole 30, I've tried Noom, I've tried Grego Gallagher's program, I've tried, PDFs, I've downloaded off of YouTube, I've done it all, right? And nothing seems to work. Or another thing that I hear a lot of times, which actually happened to me personally, is like I'll get great results for 30 days or 60 days, but then something happens. Whether that's like, a holiday or a birthday or a vacation or a trip for work or just something comes up and it throws me off track. And I'll never forget, after losing 40 pounds myself, I went from 229 pounds all the way down to 185 pounds. And then 3 months after that, I was back up to 217. And I was like, man, like this game is just too hard. Like it's just not sustainable. Like I think I'm destined to be fat forever. At one point I genuinely thought it was my genetics. Like I was 29 years old and I thought I'm just always going to be chubby. And one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video was to put together not just this video, but a series of videos that any dad could watch. And if you just implement it, I know that you're going to get great results because this is the methodologies that we use here at Unbreakable Dads. And this is what I call the self-sustaining fat loss system. Now, it is a system because it is not just an act that you do one time, it is a way of life. I call this a system mainly because it's not just a lifestyle, but it's a way of thinking, it's a way of being, it's a way of showing up in every area of your life. I firmly believe that fitness is a foundational habit, right? If this is peak happiness up here, okay, I think personally, all right, that 70% of our ability to acquire the last 30%, which is money, career, right, relationships, all that stuff, right, time with our kids, I think we can get 70% of our way to overall life happiness when our health is dialed in. Because when our health is dialed in, we have high energy. When our health is dialed in, we're in a good mood, right? When our health is dialed in, we're confident, right? We just feel better about ourselves, right? We get that self-love. And when we come from a place of self-love, high energy, good mood, high confidence, we tend to figure out the rest of the world, right? Things just start to flow naturally. Have you ever met that guy who's just in great shape, makes a lot of money, lives in a great house, has an awesome relationship with his wife? It seems like he kind of has it all. That's because he has a very systematic way of living his life. What we want to do is install the self-sustaining fat loss system into your life. So how are we going to do that? Well, it's really not that complicated, right? There's 3 parts to this self-sustaining system. We have the diet, right? Food and nutrition. We have the mindset, right? Way of thinking, decision-making tree. And then we have activity. And I'm going to break down over the course of this series of videos how to implement every single aspect of this. How to nail your diet while you're traveling. How to nail your diet while you're at home. How to nail your diet during the holidays, right? Because it's not just about having one thing that you do all the time, right? Because that's essentially like having a contractor show up to your house to repair your kitchen with just a hammer. If a contractor that you hired shows up with just a hammer to hang all of the cabinets and fix everything in the kitchen and fix and repair the sink and all the pipework, you'd be like, you're a freaking psychopath. Yet that's how so many dads approach diet, nutrition, and working out. They pick one style of working out. They pick one way of thinking. They pick one dieting strategy, but then they're met with a multitude of different lifestyle circumstances that don't match up with that, right? Just like a contractor needs a hammer and a screwdriver and pliers and all the other different tools, you need an entire tool belt of skills, entire tool belt and ways of thinking, entire tool belt and ways of working out, depending on the situation. So that way you can match the tool to the issue and get results no matter what is happening. That is how you build a lifestyle. It's by having a systematic way of doing everything that is involved in your life. In this video, I'm mainly going to be discussing the diet strategies. Now, in the other series of videos throughout this entire playlist, you'll see the workout strategies, you'll see the mindset strategies, you'll see the way that I think. And overall, the self-sustaining fat loss system is exactly what it's called, right? It is self-sustaining. It is something that you can install into your life, and no matter what time of the year it is, no matter what thing is coming up, no matter anything that really comes your way, you can not only lose fat, gain muscle, feel great, but you'll feel confident all along the way that you'll know exactly what to do. And all some basic understanding of how to create fat loss, okay? If I need to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 150 pounds, it doesn't really matter what it is. If the goal is fat loss, then everything is surrounded by a calorie deficit. You have been taught more times than I can probably count that there's all these other different reasons why you're not losing weight. It's your genetics, it's your insulin levels, it's your insulin sensitivity, it's your body type, right? Ectomorph, mesomorph. Oh, I just hold fat differently than everybody else. No, you don't. You don't hold on to fat any more or less efficiently than anybody else. You just aren't in a calorie deficit for long enough. I have seen guys who have stumbled into my program at almost 300 pounds that are now currently walking around in the 100-pound range. I'm not saying 100 to 105. He's like 185 pounds. He lost over 100 pounds. The way that we did it was through a calorie deficit. Now, the system in which we implemented to create a calorie deficit, regardless of what scenario he was in, whether it was his birthday or holiday or vacation or travel, he's a traveling salesman. He's in his car 6 hours a day, 5 or 6 days out of the week. We had to get very creative with his strategies, and I'm going to go through a few of them here. But the way that Dan lost all the weight was strictly just through a calorie deficit. That's all it is. He intook less calories than he outputted every single day. So how do we create that? Okay. Well, you've probably heard of intermittent fasting. You've probably heard of like carnivore or keto, right? Cutting carbohydrates. Maybe you've heard of tracking macros, right? All the different methodologies. They all accomplish the same thing, and that is a calorie deficit. Intermittent fasting means you cut out a meal. If you eat 4 meals a day and you stop eating one of them, you've just cut 25% of your calories. If you go carnivore or keto, you cut out all carbohydrates, which means you just cut out a third of an entire food group. And if you track your macros, then you just know that you have this certain number that you need to hit. And as long as you stay below that number, you create a calorie deficit. That's all it really is. Now, I like to take it one step further. I'm a big believer in tracking macros because in the realm of fat loss, okay, you have flexibility on one side, right? The ability to kind of be creative in the foods that you're eating, right? And you have restriction on the other side. It's more of like a spectrum. On the restriction side, this is where you'll find the keto and the carnivore and the vegan and the intermittent fasting, right? Very strict rules. Don't eat carbs, don't eat breakfast, don't eat dinner, don't whatever, right? Like it's just one rule. But let me ask you a serious question. How many times have you been either going keto or intermittent fasting and your family wants to have a fun breakfast? Right? The kids are like, I want to make pancakes. But you're like, well, I can't eat till 1 o'clock. And you got to sit there and make pancakes for the kids or go out to breakfast at this diner, or it's Christmas morning and there's all the cookies and the French toast and all those other fun foods. And you're like, man, I really, really, really want to eat that. And you have to kind of sit there and be like, oh, I'm not going to eat that right now. And like, you're thinking like you really want to eat it. And it's kind of like this, everyone's like, why aren't you eating? You start to get all these questions from like your family members, and your mother-in-law is just like, oh, okay, you're not going to have my pie this year, right? Because you're on a diet, right? And they start to like give you flack. I never really enjoyed the hyper restrictive way of eating because at the end of the day, I'm only going to live one time, and I don't even know how long I'm going to live. I may live to 41, 58, 72, 197, depending on medical advances in the world, right? But it's a finite amount of time. And life is too short to not have a donut. Life's too short not to have ice cream cake. Life's too short not to make pancakes. And, we only get so many years that our kids are going to be young enough that they're even going to be excited about a pancake breakfast. So I want to fucking have pancakes when my daughter and my son want to have pancakes, right? So I'm really big on flexibility. And tracking macros allows for maximum flexibility because over here, while it may be a little bit more work, I can't argue that, right? Sure, it's not as black as white as don't eat carbs. But with that flexibility comes a certain level of happiness. With that flexibility comes with it a different set of strategies that allows me to be 100% present with my family and not have all of these like indiscernible rules that I just agreed upon because I watched an Instagram video where like, oh, can't eat that, right? Oh, that's not good for me. And I get to just enjoy everything that life throws my way because there's always a way for me to enjoy it. Does it mean that I can sit there and have 6 pancakes at the pancake breakfast? No, but I can have 1 or 2 because I can make it fit my macros. So with that being said, one of the hardest things for people to figure out is like, okay, well, how many calories should I eat? You can do a couple different things here. You can get a TDE calculator online, right? And it'll ask you like your height, your weight, your age, and it'll spit out some number for you. While I have found that these can be helpful, they're usually a little over-indexed. And what I mean by that is they kind of make assumptions about your lifestyle. There's actually a much simpler way. This is what I do with 100% of my clients. It is the easiest way for me to figure out their fat loss calories. And all I do is I take their current body weight, right? So let's say I have a guy, doesn't matter how old he is, right? Doesn't matter if he's 36, 51, 49, doesn't matter. I'm just going to take their body weight and I'm going to multiply it by 10. In so doing, I know that as long as they're exercising for at least 90 minutes a week, which is very light, easy to recover from, and works with every single schedule, that they're going to be in a calorie deficit. So if I have a 220-pound guy, that means that they're going to eat 2,200 calories, okay? And I know that they're going to be able to lose fat while doing that. Now, 2,200 calories, you're like, wow, that actually seems like a decent amount of food. You're telling me if I'm 220 pounds, I should only be eating 220 calories. It seems like that's 200 calories more than the daily recommended amount of 2,000. How can I still lose weight? I don't even eat that much, Brian. Like, I swear I only eat like 1,500 calories a day. No, you don't, because if you were, you'd be losing fat, okay? You probably are eating way more calories than you think because there are such things as hidden calories. But let's take this one step further. If we're gonna go the macros route here, okay? The most important macro is going to be protein. You've probably heard that a million times, like, okay, make sure you hit your protein goal, especially if you're working out, okay? So with protein, what I always will do during a fat loss phase is I will make this 42% of my calories. Now, for everyone who hates math, you can just kind of fast forward this part, but it is really easy. So you take 2,200 times 0.42, and that's going to give you 924 calories. Now, for those of you that don't know this, every gram of protein equals 4 calories. So, to determine how many grams of protein I should be eating, I'm going to divide 924 divided by 4, meaning that's 231 grams of protein. And I can already hear your thoughts. That's a lot of protein, man. That's way too much protein. Oh man, my kidneys are going to shut down. How can anyone even eat 231 grams of protein? It's not that hard. You just have to have a system and a way of making decisions so that way you can actually hit it. Really isn't that difficult, okay? And I'll explain. I'll actually give you a guide to eating 200 grams of protein a day. It'll be attached at the bottom of this video. If you want to click on the description for this video, feel free. You can download it. It gets emailed right to you. And if you just followed that, it's 200 grams of protein. You can add in a protein shake for an extra 31 grams of protein, and you're good to go, okay? So, eating 231 grams of protein is not that crazy. That means in terms of percentages, we have 38% more calories that we have to account for. Okay? That can be carbs and fats, obviously, because it's not protein. There's only 3 macronutrients. And that can be divided in any way. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh man, like aren't carbs like bad for me? Like aren't I not really supposed to be eating that many carbs? Carbs are your best friend. Okay? They're the best for performance. It makes your brain work the best. There's a reason why they taste the best, and that's because we are biologically designed to seek out carbohydrates. Like anyone who's told you like we should just be surviving on meat and fat, I personally think that they're crazy. And for the most part, while they may be hyper lean, they could probably be so much more jacked or so much more ripped or just have more energy just in general because they're actually eating carbohydrates. The key here is to not have all of your carbohydrates in one meal. And I'll kind of get into that in a little bit. You can divide up your carbs and fats evenly. The first step that I take with every single one of my clients, very simple, is we just figure out what are your fat loss calories, FLC for short, and then what is your protein intake. And as long as they do not exceed their fat loss calories and they hit their protein target, I don't care if it's high carb or high fat or high low carb. It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to create any sort of fat loss anyways is going to be the calorie deficit, right? So that means if I'm not exceeding my fat loss calories and I'm hitting my protein, then I'm getting the majority of my calories from protein and I'm in a fat loss and I'm hitting my fat loss calories, meaning I'm in a calorie deficit. It's a win-win, right? Because the protein is going to build the muscle. The protein is going to give you most satiety, meaning you're going to be satiated and not have as much hunger while being in a fat loss phase. And you're good to go. Now, most people, when I do their body weight times 10, they're going to start to see results immediately. What I mean is that the scale is going to start to tick down within 72 hours. It is very rare that when somebody nails their calorie deficit that they don't immediately start losing weight. Now, here's the caveat to that, okay? The first 3 to upwards, depending on how heavy you are right now, up to 10 pounds is going to be water weight. So it's not like real fat, but at the end of the day, you're still losing weight. You're trending in the right direction and it's quick and immediate wins. Typically, at about the 4-week mark, which I know sounds like a long time, but in all reality, dude, it's 28 days, okay? If you do what I'm about to share with you in regards to your diet, you're not even going to be that hungry, right? So start to feel very easy to eat like this. In about 4 weeks, you're going to notice that your clothes are going to be a lot looser. In about 6 weeks, okay, you're going to start getting compliments from other people. And just to kind of tie in the mindset a little bit, you personally, because you look at your body every single day, really won't start to see any changes until about 8 weeks. That's just some healthy expectations. Like you're going to feel better, you're going to have more energy, but that doesn't mean that you will see it. Like, yes, your clothes will be looser. Yes, you will be lighter on the scale. Okay, we'll talk about some healthy expectations in regards to fat loss. You will have all of that. However, okay, you will not physically see it in the mirror and like recognize it like, oh man, I look fucking totally different till 8 weeks. That's healthy expectations, and that also ties into the fat loss sustainability system in the right mindset. When you have the right expectations, you know what to expect. Then you're not making all these emotional decisions because even though it's week 3.5 and you're like, man, I don't look any different, you know off the rip, like, me personally, I won't see or notice a dramatic difference until about 8 weeks anyways. Your wife will notice, your kids will notice, your coworkers will notice, all the external people are going to notice at around 4, 5, or 6 weeks. But you, because you look at yourself every single day, won't truly notice it till about 8 weeks. Continuing on here, okay, I want to talk about water, supplements, and food choices. You should be drinking 128 ounces of water per day like clockwork. Okay, any grown man, I don't care if you're 148 pounds, I don't care if you're 280 pounds, I don't care if you're 330 pounds, you should be drinking 128 ounces of water per day. Not only will this help you feel more full, you'll have more energy, you will digest food better, and you will perform better in every other area of your life. The biggest thing I hear is, man, I'm gonna pee all the time. Yes, you will, but really only for like 3 or 4 days. Then your body gets used to the level of hydration and you're good to go. There is no magical supplement that's just going to make you lose weight. But the ones that I would recommend the most are vitamin D plus K2, magnesium, zinc, boron, and a standard multivitamin. If you are taking in those, the zinc and the boron are going to combine with the vitamin D plus K2, and the magnesium is going to help you sleep more, help reduce stress. We'll get into that in the mindset module here. And then your standard multivitamin will give you your A and your K and your B and all that other good stuff. Because no matter how healthy you eat, it's very rare, unless you have an absolutely perfect diet, very hyper intentionally eating micronutrients. Like, it's very rare that you can get all the micronutrients in a standard day. Okay. So this gives you a little bit more flexibility. Supplementation is just helpful. Okay, so you should be taking in some supplements. Last but not least, let's talk about food choices. Okay, so ideally during a fat loss phase, the number one problem is hunger, right? I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to be hungry. And while water is going to help with this, okay, your biggest, and while water is going to help with this, your best friend here is single ingredient foods. The more single ingredient foods that you eat, the slower digestion you're going to have. The less processed foods you're eating, the better digestion you're going to have, meaning you're getting more from your food, so you actually require less food, right? Like 300 calories of potato chips doesn't necessarily fill you up, nor does it give you a lot of energy, and it just makes you want to eat more. But when you're eating single ingredient foods, you end up getting more energy and you don't feel the need to continue to eat, right? Like if I have a 500 calorie meal from McDonald's, I'm going to be hungry in about an hour. If I have a 500 calorie meal of 93.7 ground beef with 6 ounces of potatoes and some peas and green beans, I'm not going to be full. I'm not going to be hungry again for another like 2 to 3.5 hours, right? And especially if I'm at work and my mind is on other things, I'm not even going to be thinking about food. And I'm going to be very full, and not full from a place of like I'm bloated. It's going to be full in a place of like I don't need to eat anymore. I can just stop and continue living my life. So while I personally don't even eat 100% single ingredient foods, what I shoot for is 80%. I definitely dabble in with like a little bit of like snacking here and there, and like if my wife makes cookies, like I'll have one. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy some processed foods myself. If you ever had the dill pickle potato chips from Trader Joe's, they're unbelievable, right? Like I'll have a few, but I track my macros and I work it into my diet. But the majority of my food, 80% plus on a day-to-day basis, is single ingredient foods. And again, I'm going for 40% plus of my calories to come from protein. So the ones I would recommend would be like chicken, right? Everyone knows this, right? Chicken breast, right? You don't have to eat chicken breast and rice and broccoli every single day, but there's a reason why that's like a meme in the fitness industry, is because it's a single ingredient protein source. It's a single ingredient carbohydrate source, being white rice, and then it's fiber coming from vegetables. And I'm going to get into fiber here in a second. I personally would prefer, I personally recommend, and I recommend to my clients, I eat mainly chicken thighs. They're cheaper. They have a little bit more calories and fat to them. They taste better, and I can eat it more often, right? Because chicken breasts like dry out, right? But chicken thighs, they don't dry out nearly as much. It's like the dark meat, okay? The next one would be like tuna, salmon. I would really recommend this only 2 to 3 times per week at most, just because there's a lot of mercury in that. Turkey, right? Aim for like 97.3. I typically go for ground turkey. Makes great for taco nights, turkey chili, things like that. And then of course, beef, okay? Now, what I will recommend, beef has 2 subcategories, right? You have lean cuts. I wouldn't recommend a ribeye when you're on a fat loss phase, because it's like 12-ounce ribeye is like 900 calories. That's like half your day in one meal. And even though it tastes amazing and you'll be really full after eating a 12-ounce ribeye, still you're going to be hungry in like 3 or 4 hours. So if you have a ribeye, you know, you're kind of like blowing half your day on just one meal. There's also ground beef, okay? The ground beef I would recommend would be 90-10 or better. The caveat to this, okay, is when you're in a cut, the lean cuts are going to be more satisfying to eat. Meaning, like actually having flank steak, London broil, top sirloin. Those right there are going to fill you up for longer than if you just have ground beef. When I'm in a cut, I typically don't like to eat ground meats as much as possible, or like minced meats, because you digest them a lot faster and you get hungrier faster, okay? In regards to the carb sources, what I'm going to recommend, again, single ingredient. The 3 I rely on the most are sweet potato, right, and white rice. Personally, I like white rice over brown rice because you digest it better, because it doesn't have the husk on it. You get less bloated, less gassy. Another great carbohydrate source is going to be beans, right? I typically will lean towards like red or black beans. For fats, the ones I typically lean towards are like olive oil, avocado, both in like full or the oil factor, right? I will stay away from nut butters like a plague during a fat loss phase. I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It's like one of my favorite things on the planet. However, when I'm in a fat loss phase, I don't touch peanut butter because there's 9 grams of protein for 200 calories. It just does not make sense. When I give you the golden rule, an easy way for you to make decisions when you're on the go here in a little bit, you're going to realize that, like, wow, that does not even come close to the golden rule. The last thing in regards to food choices is I'm going to recommend that you put some intentionality into fiber. This can either be veg, or what I recommend a lot of my guys do is there's this great thing called the Mission. This is the brand, the Mission Carb Balanced Tortillas, right? The Mission Carb Balanced Tortillas have somewhere in the realm of like 7 to 10 grams of fiber in them, and they're tortillas. So it's not exactly the best source of fiber in terms of, like, it's probably better to get your fiber from green beans and broccoli and things like that. But if I had to get fiber in, I'm going to make sure that it's on a Mission tortilla. Slap some fucking turkey chili on there, or some turkey, just ground turkey in general, right? You can make a taco and you're getting your fiber in. One of the other things that I like to do is I like to get frozen green beans, because those frozen green beans you can just heat right up and they mix right in with just about every single meal. And like, I don't really like vegetables. I can't stand broccoli and cauliflower or spinach or asparagus. Just, it's gross. But green beans, I can tolerate that, and peas. Okay. So that's what I would do. If you really fucking hate vegetables and you can't even fathom eating like Mission tortillas or like low calorie breads that have a ton of fiber in them, then what I would recommend is just get Metamucil. And the reason being is because, one, if you just eat protein and carbs and all that other good stuff, you don't have any fiber, it's going to be destructive to your digestive system, and it's also going to help you feel fuller longer. Okay. Make sure you're getting fiber anywhere between the realm of like 15 to 25 grams per day. You're going to be all set to go. Basically, do you poop every day? As long as you poop every day, you're good. So, a couple quick notes. Okay. Number 1, golden rule. Here it is. This is, honestly, this will be, if you get nothing else from this video, just take this and run with it, okay? For every 100 calories you consume, get 10 grams of protein. For every 100 calories you consume, get 10 grams of protein. So if you're going to eat a meal, or you're going to eat a snack, or you're going to eat anything realistically, okay, then all you need to do is look at the nutrition labels or put it into the MyFitnessPal app or whatever tracking app you're going to use. And as long as there's 10 grams of protein for every 100 calories that there's in there, you're good to go. So if I'm having a 437 calorie meal, there better be 43 to 44 grams of protein plus in that meal. Obviously, if I can get it to be 50, 60, that's great. I'm well above the golden rule. I'm clear to eat it, right? Like that, if you're looking for more of like that black and white, there it is, okay? The golden rule will save you whenever you're on the go. If you have to stop at a convenience store, or if you're out at a restaurant or something like that, you just quickly enter everything into MyFitnessPal in terms of what you see on the menu. Just do your best to guesstimate. You know, being 100 calories off is not going to be the defining factor on whether or not you lose fat that week, right? Because chances are you're not eating out at a fancy restaurant for 28 meals out of the week. You're just doing it for one, right? So if you're in a deficit rest of the week, like that one meal isn't going to F you up, okay? So this is the golden rule, right? For every 100 calories, there better be 10 grams of protein in there. Another way to look at this, for every 10 calories, there better be 1 gram protein, however your brain works. Another quick note, meal prep your protein, okay? Since protein is the most important part of losing fat, the best thing you can do is meal prep your protein. You don't have to sit there and get all of your different Tupperwares out and pack out the fridge and take up all the space in the community. You don't have to take up all the space in the refrigerator with all of your Tupperwares, right? Just get one big freaking thing of Tupperware and cook all of your protein for the week on Sunday. Do it while watching football. And it'll also take the meal prep time from 3 hours down to like 45 or 60 minutes, which you do have. Your kids will love it if, honestly, just teach them how to cook, right? A lot of protein you can cook in bulk, right? Like you can make 4 pounds of ground beef in one big giant saucepan and it'll be done in 20 minutes. And 4 pounds of ground beef, I promise you, will give you enough protein for the next 5 or 6 days. Same thing with ground turkey. Same thing with chicken thighs. You can you can go buy 8 chicken thighs, throw them on a baking sheet, toss them in the oven. They'll come out crispy. They'll come out delicious, and they'll come out like nice and moist. You're good to go. Just Google how to do it, right? And you could do chicken thighs in the oven, 2 big giant saucepans with all of your ground turkey and ground beef, and you're done. And it'll take you 45 minutes, right? Probably even less than that. Okay. So meal prep your protein at the beginning of the week. All right. Last quick note here. Let's talk about plateaus. Okay. Again, going back to some mindset stuff here, plateaus are inevitable. Okay. The body adapts. It has your entire life. Okay. So when you're eating in a calorie deficit, what it's going to do is it's going to get your body to a point where that becomes the new maintenance. Your body's always fighting to maintain homeostasis. Okay. So all you need to know is that when you hit a plateau, you've reached a new level of homeostasis. Your body's just going to get you to a certain weight where your calories in and calories out are identical. That's the whole thing. So that might be 10 pounds, it might be 15 pounds, it might be 25 pounds. And I used to get really defeated when I would be like, oh man, I'm in another plateau. Like, I can't believe I'm in a plateau. Like, this sucks. The reality is that plateaus are part of the process. When that happens again, all you have to do is do the equation one more time. So just to use the guy as an example, okay, let's say we go from 220 down to 205. He hits a plateau. A plateau means that you are the same weight for 2 weeks straight. I would highly recommend weighing in 2 or 3 times a week, just so that way you can get an average. So your week over week average for 2 weeks is identical, meaning like it's 205.4 and 205.3, somewhere around there. If your week over week average is the same, you've hit a plateau. That's totally fine. Okay, when that happens, you just do 205 times 10, and now your new calories are 2050. Easy peasy. And then you figure out your protein from there, which in this case would be 210 grams of protein, and you move on, right? It's not that hard. When you hit a plateau, you just readjust the program, okay? Another healthy expectation here is you should be aiming to lose about 1% of body weight per week. Meaning if you're 220 pounds, you should be losing around 2 pounds per week. If you're 180 pounds, you should be losing about 1.5 pounds per week. As long as you're consistently doing that, you're on the right track. Now, that's on average. So some weeks will be 3, some weeks will be 1, some weeks will be 1.5, some weeks will be 1.4, some weeks will be 2.2. It doesn't really matter as long as you're just consistently in the average of about 1% per week. Now, it's not until you do 4 weigh-ins in a row. If you're weighing yourself twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, if 4 weigh-ins in a row, you're pretty much within the same 1 pound marker. Let's say you're 205.8, 205.3, 205.9, 205.4. Okay, you've hit a plateau, readjust your macros. Okay, but you may be 205.8 on Tuesday, 204 on Friday, then 205.1 next Tuesday, and then 203.9 the following Friday. That means you've lost on average 1.5 pounds. You're good to go, right? Like, just keep doing what you're doing. The name of the game, and I'll get into this in the mindset module, is understanding that this is a long-term process. There is nothing about fat loss that is immediate gratification unless you go the crazy route, in my opinion, and take Ozempic. Okay, you need to be thinking about what are the choices that I'm making that are impacting the long term. We are playing an infinite game. What do I mean by that? Okay, the game of health is an infinite game. You play it until you're dead. That's it. Right? Like, the goal of being healthy is to stay healthy for as long as possible. That's it. So for using that as kind of your framework is like, there is no end goal. It doesn't really matter what the end goal is, as long as I'm moving in the right direction of getting healthier, getting stronger, feeling better, having more energy, sleeping better, and all the other things that we're going to cover in this series. We're playing an infinite game. And in so doing, you stop relying on finite results, meaning like, how much do I weigh this week? And you start to play the infinite game of like, am I feeling better? Am I feeling stronger? Am I improving? And what is the system that I'm living my life with, which is why I call it the self-sustaining fat loss system, is like What is the long-term system that I'm using for long-term results? I personally identify as what is called an LTP. I am a long-term player in everything that I do. One of the reasons why I'm creating this YouTube video, one of the reasons why I'm in the health and fitness industry as it is because everything that I do, I want to have long-term lasting effects. I'm never looking for quick fixes because you know this, man. Every quick fix you've ever been sold is always a hoax. It's always got some sort of like caveat to it. Sure, you could go and lose 50 pounds in 90 days with some guru, right? Who's going to tell you like you can't touch a carbohydrate. But what happens when you reintroduce carbohydrate? What happens when you go to a birthday party? What happens when your wife surprises you with like, your favorite dinner and it's packed full of oils and carbohydrates? What do you do then? What's your system? Your system to tell your wife no? Of course not, right? So you need to have a self-sustaining fat loss system for the long term to be able to live your life guilt-free in the best shape of your life, to have the most maximum energy, and so that way you can be the best dad you could possibly be. And that's why I created this video series. Now, if you want the guide to eating 200 grams of protein, because I do hear that a lot, that like, okay, 200 grams of protein is a lot. I get it. I've been doing it for so long, it just feels like clockwork to me. But if you want the guide for 200 grams of protein, all you need to do is go into the link in the description of this video, go ahead and download it. It'll get emailed directly to you. And it's actually like a full-fledged meal plan where if you just ate everything on the meal plan that I put on there, you're good, dude. You'd be shredded. And how do I know that? It's because it's the exact meal plan that I use to maintain sub 15% body fat all year long without even thinking about it. Okay. So if you want a copy of that, just go ahead and download it down below.